Sub A is discussion by the Plan Commission Town Board. 7B is possible action by the Plan Commission direct town staff to set a termination or modification hearing in the matter for the Lilac Acres conditional use permit. Planner Malarkey, you want to take this one away?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. About a couple weeks ago, you asked staff to provide an update on the status of Lilac Acres in regard to the approved conditional use permit. You had a series of questions basically that you asked, and so my staff report covers those questions. The conditional use for Lilac Acres as an event venue was approved by the Town Plan Commission Board on July 12, 2018. In the permit that was issued, there's a series of conditions that they have to abide by as part of that. They're currently in the process of construction and site improvements in order to operate as an event venue. They are not, improvements are not yet complete. So the questions that were submitted were, the first one was the drawings, the building, the floor plans and exterior elevations, and the site that were approved by the town board need to be compared with what is being constructed. Any changes must be identified. I'll just quickly go through the questions and then provide a brief summary of my findings. The second question was, the approval by the town board was based on the representation of adaptive reuse of the existing structures. Contrary to the representation that the existing farmhouse was going to remain intact, I understand that it was raised. The third question was, the approval by the town board was based on the representation that the previously proposed outdoor deck had been scrapped. Drawings that are available online show a large outdoor patio. The recently approved liquor license includes the outdoor patio. Was the large outdoor patio shown in the drawings upon which the approval by the town board was based? Was the large outdoor patio shown in the drawings upon which the approval of the town board was based? Fourth question, drawings that are available online show an event house with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. No such thing was ever proposed or approved by the town board. The hours of operation that were approved by the town board do not allow for an event house with overnight lodging. And then finally, drawings that are available online show a large kitchen in the main wedding reception barn. What is included in this large kitchen, which can only be used for serving catered food and not preparing food? So I'll quickly go back through each of these. The first one was the comparison between the approved drawings associated with the conditional use permit and what's being constructed at this point in time. I will note that the conditional use permit has a condition that says the business plan of operation, site plan, architectural drawings, landscape plan, and documents presented to the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission and Board on July 12, 2018 are incorporated herein and made a part hereof by reference. Compliance with such plans is required. So again, the conditional use permit has that condition that basically says anything they do has to be in compliance with those plans. So here are the differences that I've noticed based on my site visit. In terms of site access, the main entrance is moved to the west versus the east. There's 2 access points to Lonsdale Road. As part of the approval of the certified survey map, County DOT wanted the main access to be to the west, with the eastern access only for emergency access only, which would be gated off as per operations. The approved plans were just the opposite of that. So one thing that the plans showed and said was that, the conditional use permit says that the petitioner shall obtain the necessary approvals and satisfy all comments, conditions, and concerns of Waukesha County Department of Public Works for access approval on County Trunk Highway H. So they've done that approval process. That was one of our conditions, and we were aware of that at the time of the certified survey map, which happened after the approval of the conditional use permit. In terms of stormwater, there is also a condition, a conditional use permit that says the petitioner shall obtain the necessary approvals and satisfy comments, conditions, and concerns of Waukesha County Department of Land Resources for erosion control and stormwater management plan. The plans that were approved as part of the conditional use permit showed 2 trenches, one basically on the west side of the property and one south of the buildings near the southern portion of the property. It was conceptual format at the time. It was approved as such. The county has since required a larger stormwater basin that's set to the southwest of the barn itself, with a trench leading to it on the west side of the property. and then also some underground pipes across the property. So again, they were responding to one of the conditions that were set forth in terms of the conditional use permit. But one of the things that this alters, in essence, is that it's going to disrupt some of the landscaping on the property. So landscaping will be primarily along the main entrance that comes in instead of on the west rather than the east entrance. And then the stormwater pond and the trench that leads into it, some of the landscaping won't be able to be installed exactly as shown on the plan. I'd also added the west entrance drive that comes in is sort of curvilinear to avoid the existing trees as it's built now in reality versus what was shown on the conceptual plan. There was also a boulevard that was supposed to be installed as part of the main driveway, and that has not been installed. I do not think there are plans to do so at this time. In terms of parking on the site, it looks like the general layout of the parking is consistent with what was approved in the plan. I know a couple of the ADA stalls are moved to different locations. The biggest change in the parking layout is that there's now a retaining wall on the east side of the parking lot, it's sort of a couple feet high, out of stone. It blocks the access to that eastern drive, the sort of temporary drive, emergency drive that would go out to Lonsdale Road. So that is a change based on actual topography of the site. So that is different. In terms of the event barn itself, the largest building, there are certain architectural details that differ. The cupolas on top of the building, instead of being four-sided gables, they're now two-sided gables, sort of open at one end. There are a small area in the rear of the building where the base isn't the cobblestone or fieldstone that surrounds the entire thing. Instead, it's vertical wood siding that goes to the bottom. Again, this is the rear of the building. A couple of the placement of the windows is off slightly, and then the three small windows in the rear of the building underneath the eave are removed as well. So in general, the building looks like what was approved in the plans, but there are some slight differences. The biggest change, though, is the massing of the building is slightly different. The kitchen got 8 feet smaller, and the main event barn got extended to the west 8 feet. I was told due to some of the ductwork that had to come in and some of the loss of space in the main event barn. So this compensates for that. The overall square footage of the building has not changed. So it was kind of a give and take between the kitchen and the main event barn. For that, I'd also mention that the dock that's attached to the kitchen or west of the kitchen, it's not sunken anymore with stairs leading up. It's basically sloped up to the entrance now, rather than being sunken. On the east elevation of the building, the kind of the portion that goes out to the ruins, the patio, there was a part of the building that bumped out. That no longer bumps out. The same architectural details there in terms of the change of materials in the windows, but now there's a shed roof that goes over the top of it, and so that part of the structure doesn't quite protrude anymore. In terms of the event house itself, I'll address that later on when we talk about the raising and the approvals associated with that. I mentioned the landscaping. There'll be some required changes for landscaping related to the access drive, the stormwater. They have begun landscaping near the event barn, but I have not tabulated the points and tried to toll that because landscaping is not complete at that time, and per our ordinances, they have a full year from time of approval to actually complete the landscaping. So that's on hold. Other site improvements, there's a stairway to the east of the ruins that are shown in the plans. What wasn't shown in the plans was an ADA accessible ramp, but they have constructed that to make sure that it's ADA accessible. And that's the essence of the changes that I saw versus the plans versus what's constructed today. I'd like to address now the adaptive reuse of the existing house that was out there at the time of approval. So there was a home. As part of the discussion of that home in terms of the approval process, it was presented to the Planning Commission, the board. It was planned that the majority of that would be renovated into an event house. And the event house was supposed to be for where the wedding party could get ready and relax before and after the event. There was some major remodeling that was supposed to happen as part of that event house. The interior spaces were revised. There's a large porch that was extended to the west side of the building from from length to length, the materials were changed, and so it was an existing home that was renovated to look like something else, and so it didn't look exactly like the existing conditions. After the approval of the conditional use permit, the applicant came forward to the town staff, to the building inspector, and said, hey, we have some issues here, it's very cost prohibitive to reconstruct the home as existing. It would be much easier to raise it. We found some mold, some other issues, to start from scratch and to rebuild this thing as an event house. The building inspector, myself as the planner, zoning administrator, the town chairman at the time, and the town attorney discussed this issue and found that even though it was described that way in terms of a renovation and discussions, nowhere in the documentation and the approval process was it noted that it had to be a renovation of the existing home to the event house. So based on our discussions, what we told the applicant was that as long as it's substantially similar to the drawings that were shown and approved, and it looks like what was presented, we'd have no issue with tearing that down and building what was shown in the plans. And so that was the last I've seen of it. I never saw any drawings of a revised building. It was my understanding that it was supposed to be built to what was shown in the plans that were approved. It's not exactly the same. It's 1 story now versus 2 stories, though it's a double height space. There's vaulted ceilings in it. It's a 1,300 square foot footprint on the ground floor, whereas before it was 1,300 square feet with a space on 2 stories. You still have the front porch that's on the west side that sort of runs the length of the building. Some of the same architectural details. It looks like the same style of building, but if you looked at them next to what the drawings were, it's not the same. So there's been some modifications. It still functions as an event house, but it isn't exactly the same as the drawings that were presented to the Plan Commission and Board last year. So there are some changes. So that's the event house. Onto the outdoor patio. The question was, the liquor license included the outdoor patio. Was the large outdoor patio shown on the drawings upon which approved by the town board? So there's some confusion versus a deck or a patio. I just want to point out that there was a deck that was originally proposed, a past iteration of this event house, event barn, prior to this last conditional use approval. What was approved was a ruins, so the old ruins of an old barn. That was approved as a 32 by 42 foot outdoor space, and then also a small patio that was directly adjacent to the barn. So the bar. So I believe these were included in the liquor license. These are always a part of the approved plans as far as I understand. Next question. The event house has 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. No such thing was ever proposed or approved by the town board. The hours of operation that were approved do not allow for overnight lodging. That's true. So there was never any discussion of overnight lodging as part of the conditional use approval. There was always a bedroom or 2 associated with it. There was always a kitchen and bathrooms to be used for the wedding party or whoever would be hosting an event, but there was no overnight lodging. So yes, the conditional use permit at this point does not allow for that.